the Radio Forest Podcast.
Hi, Forrest. This is Ardy with the Fab Four.
Ardy, how are you?
Good. How are you?
Good. You guys are coming here to Boise November 11th, and you're playing Rubber Soul. Is that right?
We sure are.
Why are you picking Rubber Soul? Like, that's not known for a ton of hits. Is it just kind of time to do it, or an album you guys like?
Well, it's kind of a long story, but the short story is some of the promoters wanted us to try a little completely different show. After years and years at the same venues, they wanted to see if a different theme or a different album would be a good selling point and try something different just to freshen up the show. And so far it's been pretty good. It's been a very good response from the audiences, which is surprising. But like you said, it's like there's not that many hits on that album. But we open up the show with Rubber Soul, and we continue on in the second half of the show after intermission with Sgt. Pepper stuff and the usual, later material, Hey Jude and all that kind of stuff, Get Back, Revolution. There's plenty of hits in the show still, but we are definitely opening up the show with Rubber Soul.
So when you take apart an album like this, because you guys are learning so many intricate details note for note, what do you think is the major difference between like Rubber Soul and then the next album, Revolver? Is a pretty drastic change for the Beatles. They kind of start getting into LSD. Songs are a little bit trippier, like Yellow Submarine. What's this about? Kind of losing that that boy band image. Do you feel that when you play the songs? Because like I said, you're really tearing these apart.
Well, yeah, we actually really do. And just like everything we do, it's only the four of us playing everything on stage. So that includes stuff like Day in the Life and everything. But when it comes to Rubber Soul and Revolver has a lot more electric guitar stuff. I think there's maybe one acoustic song on Revolver, whereas Rubber Soul, almost every other song is an acoustic song. There's a lot more folky elements on Rubber Soul, I guess you can say. Girls in there, I'm Looking Through You. That's kind of a very quirky song, but a great song. Think for Yourself, which has a cool fuzz bass, which is actually very fun to play. That's actually my favorite song to play during that show for a couple of different reasons. But it's a quirky album. So is Revolver. So far, like I'd mentioned, it's been a very good response to it, which is surprising.
Now, why is it fun to play based on that song? You said it's because of the fuzz. Do you get to add a little bit of a different flavor to it, or what makes it so enjoyable?
Yeah, we have an effect that, Paul famously played a regular bass track on Think for Yourself. He added a fuzz tone, a pedal, to one of the basses that he played on as an overdub. And so you have the regular bass track and the fuzz bass track, which are doing, I'd say 70% of the same thing, but there's some variables that are played throughout the song. And it's just a cool sound. It's a very quirky song. You don't really have a rockin', there's not that very many Rockin' George songs, that are rockin'. That one's pretty rockin'. It's fun.
You're really committed to the Paul part, right? Don't you even have some Hofner basses yourself? Like, aren't you kind of into those?
Oh, boy. You shouldn't talk to me about Hofner basses. Yeah, I've got, some people say I have too many. I have 9.
Are they expensive, right? Because they're not American. What are they? Are they German?
They're German made. Yep, all of them. All the ones I have are German made. They do make Chinese ones these days. They're called ignition basses and contemporary basses, which are maybe a quarter of the price of a German one. But I'm a stickler for the real ones and the authenticity. So I don't even own a Chinese one.
Why commit to the left hand of Paul? Because you play left-handed on stage, but you're right-handed, so you had to relearn. Even picking became sort of a challenge. You know it, and I know he's left-handed, but does the average person, or why are you committed that much to Paul?
Well, that's kind of a loaded question, but it's because we wanted to. I started off doing Beatles stuff right-handed, and for years I had people say, even in Japan, you'd be so great if you were left-handed, and I didn't really think anything of it. I never wanted to do that until I really formed the Fab Four with a couple of the other guys in the band and said, okay, if we're going to make it the ultimate tribute to the Beatles, well, what's the ultimate tribute? They better look like it. So from the audience's perspective, Paul better be left-handed, because when he joins the microphone with John and George, it's got to have that V shape, the guitar necks both going out towards the audience, which is a very classic look. So that was the main thing, the look of it. And he's my hero. So I said, okay, I'm going to dive into it, and I'm going to teach myself how to play left-handed. half of my guitars are left-handed and half of my guitars are right-handed here at home.
When you switch back, does it take you a second to repick, like going back to your normal style?
It does if I'm on the road for about a week or so and I come back home and I pick up one of my Beatle guitars or any of my other guitars right-handed. It's kind of like patting your head and rubbing your stomach, but for the most part, it's second nature.
What were your thoughts on the Get Back documentary? I'll start first. I anticipated Yoko kind of being more in the way. I think she was still in the way, but the band didn't mind. And I looked at it as she was part of John. John wanted her there, and they loved John, so they didn't really seem to care that Yoko showed up.
I honestly would think exactly what you just said. That's exactly how I felt about it. It was great seeing a lot of the great, very high-quality footage. Seeing some of the interactions that you don't see. Because when the Let It Be film came out originally in 1970, that director, Michael Lindsay Hogg, he just made it so dark and dreary and just negative. It just didn't have any charm, or it didn't show the Beatles really having fun together and enjoying themselves, where I think the Get Back thing, obviously with 8-9 hours of what they showed, it was so cool for us Beatle fans to see how they really did like each other till the end. They did. They had a good time together still. So that was nice to see that.
Did you ever see that YouTube video of Jack White naming any Beatles song in 1 second? Have you seen that?
I have not seen that, no.
You got to get it. When you get a second, just look up Jack White Beatles. They play 1 second of any Beatles song, and he can name it instantly. It's like creepy. Now, unless it was somehow faked and he knew the songs ahead of time, but it seems pretty legitimate.
I'd be pretty good at that. I'm kind of a scholar of sorts of Beatles history. I'm not a total expert, but that is my field. I've been doing the Fab Four has been together for 25 years. We've cultivated a lot of younger guys to come in and do the shows for us and with us because, the old guys, at some point, you got to let the young guys take over and continue on, because being on the road for 25 years tends to get a little bit, tiresome on the body, especially. We're just lucky to have fellow-minded Beatle fans that want to join up with the Fab Four and tour around and play for such great audiences. And we're pretty much touring all the time. It's not like a lot of other, some of the huge acts that only toured in the summertime. They go out for 2 or 3 months and that's it. But we're touring every week. We're always on tour. We're doing 3 or 4 shows. Last week we had 7 shows between 2 of our lineups. We had 2 different casts going out and covering 7 shows in 4 days.
Let's talk about another band you love, though, a band that is currently touring, and they're done here at the end of the year. Kiss, what do you think about them finally retiring? And I use that with air quotes.
You did your homework on me, huh? Yeah. So, what's funny, because Beatles, before the Beatles, Kiss were my Beatles, really. I grew up listening to Kiss and all sorts of stuff. We also have some history with Kiss. I don't know if you know about that.
I do not.
So we played at the Hollywood House of Blues in 2001. Halfway in the intermission, upstairs, our manager at the time, or publicist at the time, said, "Hey, Ardy, don't freak out. Paul Stanley's upstairs waiting for you." I said, "Get out of here. What are you talking about?" So we go up there. It was Paul and Eric Singer and Doc McGee, the manager. He wanted to hire us for his birthday party, his 50th birthday party, which was in 2002. So he hired us to play. We played his birthday party. All the guys in Kiss were there, and I had the cool idea. I got to pat myself on the back. During Get Back, we would break it down and do a mashup into Lick It Up, and we did Lick It Up, a little bit of Lick It Up, and they just lost their minds. It was hilarious seeing their faces. They loved it. So anyway, we had some interactions with Gene after that. Gene wanted us to do a Kiss album in Beatles style. We were working on a Christmas album, which we still have out. You can still get it. It's called Heart. Christmas songs done in a Beatles style. And we did that over, 17 years ago. Almost 20 years ago. We've added a couple tracks here and there, and Gene had wanted to buy the rights to it. And then he wanted to put together a little video and dress us up with half Kiss makeup, doing Kiss songs as the Beatles. So that was one thing. Then going back to your question, I hope they're going to stop. If they say they're going to stop in December at Madison Square Garden, I hope they do, because if they do any other shows after that, it's really going to spoil, the end of the road thing. I was lucky enough to see the original lineup a few times with Peter, Chris, and Ace back in the 2000s in 1996. So at least I got to see the original guys a few times. That was cool. I hope they have a blast. I hope they do it, and I hope that's it. They got to know when to stop, and I think hopefully they picked the right time. They definitely picked the right venue to end it at, their hometown, Madison Square Garden. So that's very cool. I'm really happy for them.
Were there any other high-profile musicians at Paul's birthday party? I mean, I know Gene and Paul McCartney are aware of each other, but was there anybody else in the crowd, or was it more of a small event?
No, it was a smaller event, but there were people there. I because it was Hollywood. Gosh, I couldn't even imagine. I mean, I think Dave Grohl might have been there, but he's another guy who we have some contact with. We played for his wedding about a year later after we did the Paul Stanley thing. So I'm wondering if he was at Paul's party, because that one came kind of out of the blue to play his wedding, which was cool. And at his wedding, we had the Nirvana guys were all there, and Jack Black was there, and a whole bunch of other celebrities. And speaking of celebrities, I'll just add this in. We worked with Eric Idle from Monty Python in 2008 as the Ruddles. It was called Ruddlemania, and which was a spoof that he did in 1978. A spoof on the Beatles called the Ruddles. And they had their own music and everything, and so we toured around, did a few shows in New York and here in Los Angeles with Eric Idle, which was a blast. Being in LA, we've had a lot of experience playing for celebrities and with celebrities for different events and charities and stuff. So being in movies, doing scores for movies. So it's been fun. We've had a good time doing it, Was McCartney at Grohl's wedding? Those guys are close. I mean, I don't know if they were at that time, but I get the impression. I don't think so. I think he would have told us. He probably would have told us. But maybe he would. I doubt he was, to tell you the truth. I doubt he would have been. That was a big party. Dave Grohl's party was a big wedding. And we played on his, they covered up his tennis court to make it like an enclosed ballroom type thing. Yeah, he actually mentioned us in his book, which was nice, by name. So that was kind of cool. So
your name had to have gone back to Paul and Ringo at some point. I mean, if Gene Simmons and Grohl both have hired you, they have to say like, oh, hey, have you seen these guys? I mean, that had to have come up for sure, right?
They do know about us, yeah. In fact, we know from a very good source that Abe, his drummer, Paul's drummer, they have our CDs. They have our Christmas CDs. And supposedly, about 10 years ago, they were playing it on their tour bus. Paul knows about us. Yeah, I don't think he's ever seen us live. Maybe he's seen some videos, possibly. That would be cool. Ringo, on the other hand, I don't know. I don't think Ringo really cares, I got a chance to meet Paul briefly in 2005 at a book signing. That was cool, but I never got a chance to meet George, and I haven't met Ringo yet. So there's a little bit of time left to meet Ringo, hopefully.
After the selling to Disney and the quote-unquote new Star Wars movies, I thought they were great, Last Jedi and all that stuff. But now that some time has passed, I'm starting to think they weren't as good as I originally thought. I know there's been a lot of controversy about Rey and Finn, and they were like, well, it's not fair. We didn't get more parts. And it's like, well, they're not good characters, though. And in my personal opinion, what about you? What do you think about the three newest Star Wars movies and, maybe the ones in between, too?
Oh, boy. Well, I did not like the prequels. I did not like the prequels. That was such a mess. Writing, and they should have made Phantom Menace and Attack of the Clones should have been one movie.
Absolutely.
And they should have had flashbacks to Anakin as a kid, not have the whole movie as a kid. That was terrible.
If you condense that to one movie, the best scenes with like Darth Maul and all that, that's a pretty good film. If you cut out all that junk.
That's another mistake they made. They killed off the coolest villain they've had in 20 years in the first movie. He should have been the bad guy all three movies. It was just terrible writing. Unfortunately, I think George Lucas just believed in his own myth and didn't have other people to challenge him and say, that's not a good idea, George, kind of a thing like he had originally, The new ones, Force Awakens was cool because it had some of the original guys in it. I think they wasted Mark Hamill. That was a shame, the waste of his character, I think. The Disney stuff online, I think some of the shows have been okay. Mandalorian's pretty cool. Boba Fett was a disaster. Could care less about Ahsoka and some of the other stuff. I liked the Andor show. That seemed to be pretty good. we already know what happens to Andor. I don't even know why they're making a whole series about it, but that's another story.
But I think, again, there's like these moments, these highlights, because like the end of that one season of The Mandalorian when Luke shows up is like the most badass droid battle of all time, like with those dark troopers. They're so close. Like I want so much of that stuff, and they just keep messing with me, you know?
Oh, yeah. Oh, well, if you know me, I mean, I've got the room I'm sitting in right now is my music room, my little man cave, my Fab cave. All my guitars are in here. Well, some of them. A lot of the other ones aren't in here, but it's Star Wars and Beatles in this room. That's what's in here.
Tell me about this guitar you bought, sold, and then bought the same guitar back again kind of recently.
Oh, you heard about that one? Okay.
Yeah.
I'm looking at it right now. It's a blue. Here, ready? Yes, you can listen to it. No joke. It's right in front of me. It's called a Rickenbacker 360 12-string. I bought this guitar back in 2002 maybe, and I sold it about a year or two later to a guy. He had it for 17 years, 18 years, and then about 3 years ago, he posted online a picture of it. He sent to me. He said, "Hey, your guitar's doing good still. I'm still playing it." And I just happened to kind of joke, say, "Hey, if you ever want to get rid of it, I'd love to buy it back." And he did. And so we went to Portland, where he lived. We did a show in Portland. It's just good to have it back. Yeah, that was very cool.
Did you regret selling it like right away, or did some time pass and then you started to miss it? Did you have to sell it at the time, or were you not in love with it? What happened?
I didn't have to sell it. I was trying to get another guitar, and at the time I thought, well, I better not start getting too many guitars. But, here I am now. I have about 90 guitars. It's kind of an addiction.
So then how did you decide then to buy that back? I mean, you did say it was kind of like you saw it, but were you thinking about it? You could just go buy another one, right? You could buy that guitar. Well,
it's kind of a rare color, too. That was part of it. It's a very rare color for this particular guitar. So that's about half of the reason I wanted it back. The cool thing is the guy sold it to me for the exact same price I sold it to him for.
That was going to be my next question, if he made any money off you.
No. Same exact price, and I couldn't be happier.
So if you have 90 guitars, you have to have some sort of system of how you keep them, organize them, or know where they're at. And then you've got the Fab Four guitars and basses. You've got left-handed stuff. You've got right-handed stuff. You've probably got some vintage things that are worth a good chunk of money, maybe some new experimental things. Once you get to 90, if you have 3, you might just throw them in a room, but 90, you don't. So what's the process?
If you want to throw me a cell phone, I could take a few pictures. You could see what I have in here and send them to you if you want to.
I'll use that for sure.
Just for your own sake, you can see my Star Wars stuff in here. You'll crack up that it's all interspersed with each other. My main ones, my babies, I call them, are all in this room for the most part. I have another house that has some guitars in the garage still. The problem is not the guitars that are when they're out of their cases; it's the cases. It takes up so much room. So garages get full pretty quickly. I pretty much know where all my guitars are. Every once in a while, I'll change one out. I'll bring another one up, put them on the wall, take another one down, put it in the case, and put it away for a while. That kind of thing. And I try to play them all, believe it or not. I try to pick one up every week and tune it up, play it for half an hour, at least, give it a little bit of love.
So what's next then? Because I'm also into Star Wars and guitars, and I get it. I can't go to a pawn shop. I know if I'm going in there, it's super dangerous because I'll find something that I wasn't thinking about, and it's cheaper than I thought, or it's well worn, which sometimes for a guitar is a really good thing. Like they sound better. So what's next on your list, or are you more of a walk in, see something, and then realize you have to have that?
I don't do too many pawn shops. I have a couple of different guys that I look for guitars and that kind of a thing. Star Wars stuff, once in a while I'll see some at a thrift store or like an antique store kind of a thing, or maybe once in a while like a rummage sale or a sale you'll pass by and look at something. But I just got so much stuff, and I've got 3 kids, so some of the stuff is theirs. Obviously, it's gonna pass it down to them, but I still have so much stuff. I got to get rid of a few guitars still.
Do the kids want to play with the stuff? I have an old carrying case for the action figures of Star Wars, and it's Vader's head, like the top half. And it folds out. You're probably aware of what that is. And
absolutely.
He saw it, and he's like, "Dad, can I play with this?" And I was like, absolutely. So he's putting, figures in there, and he loves it. So I'm like, at this point, I keep it because I like it. I'm not going to sell it or make any money off of it. But surely you've got some. Do they ask to play with the stuff too? They've got to be interested.
My oldest daughter loves Star Wars. She's really into Clone Wars. She loved the Clone Wars, so she's been interested in the Ahsoka show and some of that spin-off stuff. My younger daughter she's a musician more than the Star Wars stuff. So I bought her first guitar. She's borrowed a couple of my guitars over the years. So I finally bought her one for Christmas, which she loves, and she's self-taught, plays piano too. So both of them have a little bit of my influence, which is nice. Toy-wise, they have little figurines and stuff, but they don't really like play with them necessarily. But I have a son also who is the one that's going to be doing all the Star Wars stuff. He was Darth Vader last year for Halloween, so there you go.
So we've got Rubber Soul and More Hits coming Saturday, November 11th. It's at the Egyptian Theater here in Boise. We're talking to Ardy Sarraf. He is Sir Paul McCartney of the Fab Four. Thanks for the chat today.
That's cool that we got off on some other fun stuff. Thank you for the interview, and hopefully we get a lot of people out there to the show. I think they're really going to dig it. I mean, Rubber Soul is such an eclectic, kind of a quirky album, but it does have some great songs, even though they weren't hits. There's really, really cool songs on there.
Absolutely. Thanks for the call today.
Thank you, man.